can just grab it.
Okay. Well, then some community that can use that will probably do that. Okay. Let's see. I guess we're gonna go a little long here. Do we want to get on the Apple executive falling on his own sword?
I don't know how we could treat that fairly.
Yeah, you're probably right. That's like... Okay. So I guess we'll leave that alone. Basically, okay, rather than go into this, I'm just going to give y'all a name to Google. Mark... what is it? Papermaster.
That's an awesome name.
Yeah, that is a great name. Is that his real name, or did he change it when he came to Apple? You know, it's like, hi, I'm Mark Papermaster. It's just like, let's just say he doesn't work at Apple anymore, and Google that and draw your own conclusions as to why that is, because like, you're right, we can't be unbiased in that.
I was trying to say that's about the iPhone antenna. I remember before you said that you didn't want to get into that anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing. So let's wrap this up, getting into the ever-changing story of the week, which is the Google and Verizon and net neutrality story.
I heard that Google denied Verizon in the talks after, but...
Okay, this story has
If you look at the alt link,
I heard that they were talking about it, but then Google said no.
Here are the 4 stories going on here. There's one set of blogs that are going on saying that Google and Verizon were having secret talks to try and bring an end to net neutrality to give Google packets preferred service on Verizon Android phones. Then there's the other thread, which as soon as this thread started, Google put out an official announcement. It's like, no, we ain't. So then the other story going on is Verizon was approaching Google to try and do this, and Google said, hell no, we're not that stupid. We'll get federal regulators and everyone else on us.
That's what I heard.
And then the story that spun off of that one was that the FTC was coming in and bashing on both Google and Verizon to make sure they did what was in the best interest of the end user. What's so funny about that twist on this story is, ironically, not too long ago, the FTC had the authority to regulate broadband internet, and they gave it up. And now they want it back, and the judge says, I'm sorry, you can't go Indian give on being stupid. So now the FTC is desperately trying to figure out how to enforce net neutrality, since they were stupid enough to give up any authority they have to enforce it. And that's a whole other story to get into at some other point. Anyways, the latest spin on this ever-changing story is now that both Verizon and Google are approaching the FTC with what they believe is a good bill of rights for net neutrality.
Huh.
So...
That's many tangent stories. I haven't actually read all that, okay?
I've been following it. I hadn't thrown it in yet because I didn't know where the magic changing story was going to land, and I didn't want to speak out my ass only to have it change the next day. But
there are. Have you heard there's some countries where net neutrality has become a law?
I name one. Australia is the closest I know, but even they don't have true neutrality in their laws.
I would have to look it up, but I'll try to find it.
Say Germany and Australia would rank high on that list, but the German government wants to be able to do, be in charge of that advisory and everything. So the German government's the biggest hindrance to net neutrality.
I think. Is it Iceland? I'm thinking of somewhere. Might be Iceland, but I would have to look it up. Alright, anyway.
I would love to...
If that is even what I'm thinking about. Could be wrong, but I'll say it at the next show if I find it.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, I'd love to see net neutrality actually become law. I'd love it to become law that they cannot rape us. They cannot rake us over the coals. They can't charge differently for their bits over other people's bits. It's like, it's their network, but the only thing they can charge for is access. I understand it's their network, they own it, they need to be able to moderate it and administer it. But there's a difference between being an administrator and administering the network and maintaining the infrastructure and charging me for access to that versus giving your services preferential treatment because it's your network. That just reeks of the worst kind of monopolistic stuff you possibly can do.
You know, I'm honestly fine if they don't want to have unlimited stuff anymore. It's reasonable.
No. I'm not. Actually, at this point, that would crash the internet. And the reason I say that is because no matter how you meter that, whether you meter that at the end user level or at the distributor level, it's going to get screwed up. And that you just can't do stuff.
No, you just measure. If all, you could just make all bits created equal, whether they're torrents or things, anything, just any bits being created, any bits being transferred, just have a limit on those. Not charging per bit per se, but I mean we're getting to a point where there's going to be huge, YouTube is having these 4K videos, so we're getting to a point where there's going to transfer a huge amount of bits, so I understand.
What I honestly think we need to move toward, it's okay, you say unlimited. I think the key word everybody needs to be focusing on isn't unlimited, unmetered. Because at the end of the day, there is only so much bandwidth to go around. However, there's not a limited amount of bits to go around. And that the pipe's so big, so you have to regulate that. Because otherwise the network will crash. But it doesn't make a difference whether 1,000 or 1,000,000 cars go down the road as long as they do it 6 cars at a time on a 6-lane highway. So I'm a big fan of moving towards unmetered but controlled networks, which is in peak times, you're going to have a slow internet connection. I'm sorry, we can't give you your 50 megabit connection 24/7. We don't have the bandwidth for it. If everybody's on the internet, you're screwed. As a matter of fact, that's the solution most colleges have adopted. They take their pipe, they take how many people are accessing it, and they split it. Even though they could offer in some cases 100 megabit connections because they have the resources for it, they've split it where every single connection to the network is on a Y connection, depending on how big their pipe is. And when you do that, you guarantee 24/7 at all times, every single person gets a steady, reliable connection. They don't meter it, they don't do anything like that. They just go, here's the size of the pipe we can provide, have fun with it. The problem is that goes directly in contrast with the business model all the ISPs have been doing for the last 10 years, which is, we have a bigger pipe, we have more MBs. And their one-upsmanship has grown faster than their networks has.
Well, another thing is that the infrastructure for internet for end users, at least what they're offering us, is pretty shitty in America. I mean, you got other places. America has very expensive and very slow internet compared to other countries. You got other countries which have...
Don't you love it? Don't you love it when your country's geographically unpopulated?
Right. But I mean, there's other countries which have much, much faster internet than us for the same price. And it's totally possible. It's not like it costs them anymore to do that. It's just we need to update our infrastructure or stop being greedy. Maybe we have the infrastructure and we're just charging people more, or maybe we're charging people more and we don't have the infrastructure. Whatever it is, we need to catch up.
Well, it has to do with the geographical distances to cover. Like if you're a small country geographically speaking, it actually is very affordable to go nationwide Wi-Fi or nationwide last mile Ethernet, where everybody has 1,000 megabit connections directly to the internet. But in a country that's over 3,000 miles wide, that's not as densely populated. Yeah, I'm waiting for the optical coast-to-coast network, but it's got to be built, which it doesn't exist right now.
They're still connected to servers just as far away as we are. I don't see what the difference is.
Not in the countries that have 1,000 megabit connections.
In the countries that have, they're still connecting to servers in America.
No. That's not what I mean. But I mean their interconnectivity is up to that because that infrastructure is last mile. Basically, they're directly connected via an Ethernet cable, not a coax cable or anything like that. And that technology has a limitation. That's why it's called last mile, of 1 mile, which means you need a thing every mile. If you're in a small country, that's economical to do. For us, that's going to take a while. It's like I think the only place in the U.S. you can even get that connection is in Silicon Valley right now. There isn't anywhere else in the continental U.S. that has that connection right now. It will come, but you got to build that network. It's basically they're connecting to a server that's connecting directly to the satellite, and they're within a mile of it. That's the thing. Which we're not. Follow the way your packet jumps around here. And there's limitations of the technology. We'll get there. But yeah, well, although there's countries also that have it worse than the U.S. right now. You know, Australia comes to mind. Look at Australia, India, and parts of Africa, and it's like people complain about having a 150 gigabyte limit. Because, like, there's still some places in the world where you're doing good to get a 20 gigabyte limit for bandwidth usage. So, forget watching YouTube. It's like,
I don't know if it's fair to compare us to
floppy disks are still being sold
this kind of thing.
and created.
well, no, I'm just saying we're not the worst, we're not the best. When it comes to that, we're about middle ground. I think it's perfectly fair to compare us to Australia.
We can do a lot better.
Oh, no, hell yes, we can do a hell of a lot better.
So we could have many fold faster internet for the same price that we're getting, even with our infrastructure. Maybe we do have some limitation, but it sure as hell is not where we're at. That is not. That's what I'm saying.
No, it's like, and it's because I don't want to go into too many parts here. We're going to end this in a minute here, but it's where that comes back to is the current internet infrastructure we largely have now was built during the .com bust, and then regulators came in and basically made these deals with the cable companies and other people, which says if you lay the pipe, you own it. And since then, that regulation has changed. So they invested in all this copper infrastructure, which they own. And those same limitations don't apply to optical infrastructures, which means there's no incentive for them to go out and lay an optical infrastructure because they won't own it, and they'll be subject to whole new means of infrastructure regulation that they don't want. And they're not subject to because they own these copper lines that they built. Basically, they've been disincentivized to actually build a better infrastructure.
Lame.
Yeah. Thank you, federal regulators, for doing your job to slow the progress of the United States. We need so many more of you. We got a minute if we're going to stay to 4 parts. Anything else y'all want to say, or you want to just end it here?
No, we're good.
Okay. I guess we're going to end it there, people. That's hopefully 4 parts is short enough for you part counting people. Like, peace out all.